In a serene and secluded village, tucked away amidst rolling hills and meandering streams, there lived an elderly woman who had earned the affection and respect of everyone around her. She was widely recognized for her gentle demeanor and her ever-present kind smile, which seemed to radiate calmness even on the most turbulent of days. The villagers admired her not just for her kindness, but also for the way she carried herself through life with such tranquility. Her presence alone brought a sense of reassurance, and people often found themselves seeking her out, not for grand solutions, but for simple guidance and comfort. Her words, though always few, seemed to possess a quiet power. They carried a soothing quality, and those who listened to her often left feeling lighter, as though a heavy burden had been lifted from their hearts. One quiet afternoon, as the sun cast a golden hue over the rooftops and the air was fragrant with the scent of blooming flowers, a young woman arrived at the old woman's modest home. Her eyes, red and weary, bore the unmistakable traces of tears recently shed. Her face reflected a deep sadness, as though she had been carrying an invisible weight for far too long. She hesitated for a moment, then took a tentative seat beside the old woman, who welcomed her with a gentle nod and a soft, understanding smile. The young woman spoke in a low, almost trembling voice. "Grandmother, how do you remain so happy? No matter what happens, you always appear calm and joyful. Don't you ever feel sorrow when life turns harsh?" The old woman, her eyes twinkling with wisdom acquired through decades of experience, poured a cup of warm, fragrant tea and handed it to the young woman. She spoke softly. "My dear child, happiness is not something that depends on the events unfolding around us. True happiness stems from what we nurture within our hearts. It is a light we kindle inside ourselves regardless of the circumstances." The young woman's brow furrowed with confusion. "I don't understand," she admitted. "When hardships strike, when life deals cruel blows, how can anyone remain truly happy?" The old woman's gaze drifted toward the small oil lamp flickering beside them. Its gentle flame swayed with the breeze, illuminating the quiet corners of the room with a soft glow. She touched the lamp reverently and began to speak, her voice filled with the quiet authority of lived experience. "When I was a young woman, I lived with my husband and our children. Though we had very little in material wealth, our home was abundant with laughter, love, and warmth. Life was simple, yet we were content. We faced our challenges together, and our hearts were full despite the hardships. But then, tragedy struck. My husband fell gravely ill. We tried everything within our power, but we lacked the resources for proper medical care. Days turned into nights, and his condition worsened despite our desperate efforts. When he finally passed away, I felt as though my heart had shattered into countless pieces. The grief was unbearable, and I cried without end, thinking that the light of life had abandoned me." The young woman listened intently, her eyes wide with empathy and sorrow. She could feel the depth of the old woman's pain through the words she spoke so calmly. The old woman continued, her voice steady yet tender. "After weeks of mourning, I came to a profound realization. No amount of tears could bring him back. Life had not ended, and neither had my responsibilities. My children still needed me. They required my love, my guidance, and my strength. So I made a decision, not easy, but necessary. I wiped away my tears and chose to live again, to embrace life even in the face of loss." She paused for a moment, her eyes reflecting the memories of those long, past days, both bitter and sweet. I began to understand something essential. Life is a mixture of joy and sorrow, sunshine and storms. We cannot prevent the storms from arriving, but we can control how we respond to them. "Each morning, I light this lamp," she said, pointing to the small oil lamp beside her, "and I remind myself that today is a new day. I look for one small reason to smile, no matter how insignificant it may seem. Sometimes it's a gentle ray of sunlight spilling through the window, the soft chirping of birds outside, or a kind word from a neighbor. These little things, when noticed and cherished, become the sparks that keep our hearts alive." The young woman was silent for several moments, absorbing the profound simplicity of the old woman's words. Finally, she asked softly, "But what if something truly devastating happens again? How can one possibly remain happy when faced with such pain?" The old woman nodded slowly, acknowledging the weight of her question. "It is never easy," she said gently. "When we experience loss, disappointment, or hardship, we are allowed to feel the pain. That is the nature of being human. But even in suffering, we can choose perspective. Pain does not last forever. Joy and sorrow ebb and flow like the tide. When misfortune strikes, I focus on what I still possess, my health, my friendships, my cherished memories, and the simple miracle of being alive. Happiness is at its core a conscious choice. We can dwell on darkness and despair, or we can turn our gaze toward light and gratitude. The young woman's eyes wandered to the flickering flame of the lamp, noticing how it danced and swayed, yet never extinguished. A sense of clarity washed over her as she reflected on the old woman's wisdom. Finally, a faint smile formed on her lips. "Thank you," she whispered. "I think I understand now." That evening, when the young woman returned to her own home, she found a small oil lamp waiting for her in her room. Carefully, she lit it, feeling a delicate warmth fill the space. Softly, she echoed the old woman's words aloud. "This is a new day. I will find one reason to smile." At first, the reasons were humble: the morning breeze brushing against her face, the distant laughter of children playing outside, the inviting aroma of fresh bread baking nearby. But gradually, these small joys began to weave a gentle light into her heart. Even in moments of challenge, she remembered the old woman's guidance, and a newfound peace began to take root within her. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Over time, the young woman noticed a remarkable transformation. Her heart, once heavy and burdened, now carried a resilient light. The villagers began to observe this change in her demeanor. They too were drawn to her serene presence, sensing a quiet strength and a gentle happiness that radiated effortlessly. When asked the secret of her calmness and joy, she would smile warmly, just as the old woman once had, and explain, "Happiness is not found in the external world. It begins within our hearts, nurtured by gratitude, perspective, and love." And so, a small flame of peace began to spread quietly throughout the village, touching the lives of many, from the gentle wisdom of one elderly woman who had endured hardship, yet kept her heart alight with hope. The village learned a timeless truth: joy is not dictated by circumstance, but cultivated within. With each flicker of the lamp, the villagers were reminded that life, in all its complexity, offers both sorrow and delight, and that the light we carry inside has the power to illuminate not only our own path, but also the lives of those around us. Through patience, perspective, and the simple act of seeking reasons to smile each day, the villagers discovered that even amidst life's inevitable storms, a heart aligned with hope and gratitude could remain unwaveringly bright. The story of the old woman and her lamp became a cherished lesson passed from one generation to the next. Children learned to observe the small joys around them, young adults embraced resilience, and elders shared the wisdom that happiness is cultivated internally, not externally. And though the years would bring new challenges, the village thrived in a quiet, enduring peace, all because one kind-hearted woman chose to keep her lamp burning, and in doing so, ignited countless hearts with the light of gratitude, hope, and unwavering joy. Each day became an opportunity to celebrate the gift of life itself, and the flame, both literal and symbolic, continued to burn brightly, guiding all who sought its warmth. Even the smallest gestures, the smile of a neighbor, the chirping of a bird, the golden light of sunrise, were now appreciated, each one a reminder that joy need not be grand to be meaningful. It was in these daily, often overlooked moments that the villagers found the truest form of happiness. The young woman, now carrying forward the legacy of the old woman, reminded everyone she met that life's worth is measured not by the absence of sorrow, but by the presence of light within the heart. And as long as that light continued to burn, no storm could ever extinguish the enduring power of hope, love, and inner peace.